Hey guys, and thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm so happy to do this. This is the educational part, what I really enjoy to do, to talk about skincare, basically sunscreen and moisturizer for sailors. I have some disclosure. Obviously, I'm married to Peter Harken, and I have this company called Harken Derm. So I will do a little bit of pitch, and I will explain to you why I think this is one of the best sunscreen that you can use as a sailor. A little bit of there's Jimmy Spithill. He was a big part of starting this company, mainly because of the after sun, and I will talk about it. And I'm so proud that right now we are the official sunscreen for the US sailing team, and also we are official partner for the American Magic team. So if you don't know, I'm a dermatologist, an academic dermatologist, and my special interest is skin cancer and photobiology, which is basically the interaction between the skin and the sun. So, and I treat people like, this is Dick Stearns. If you don't know who he is, although you should as a sailor, he was silver medalist in the Star in 1964 in Tokyo, and he was world champion of the Star class. He is my patient, as on the right side as a young guy, and now, and as you can see, he has a lot of skin cancers. So you guys, sailors, are really high risk because there is this, I call it triple pleasure and triple threat. So the sun, the water, and the wind. So these are all very damaging for your skin. And because of the amount of time you spend out there, professional sailors a lot, even weekend sailors for those short time, it does affect your skin. So basically the issue what I faced, and this is a part of how Harken Derm started, this is a picture I took on one of the boats, and this is already, we have Harken Derm there, but you know, you go to these boats and there's a ton of sunscreen on the shelf or in a drawer or in a basket, and people have no idea what to use. And I kind of had so many questions from people when I got on the board, and it turned out I was a dermatologist, which is a good sunscreen, what to use. So if you don't remember anything what I said, what you should remember, one thing, you need to check the back, okay? Not this lady, but the sunscreen. So luckily in the United States, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, requires to put the active ingredients in the back of your sunscreen. So let's give you a 2-minute decoding of sunscreen tubes. And this is what is so important for you to know, because the front of the tube, we will not give you the information, the most crucial information. It will tell you the SPF, which is very important. And I really promote for you to use the highest SPF 50, because people don't use enough sunscreen, not in the same amount what they use for testing. So usually when you put on a 50, probably that is a 30 on your skin. But SPF only means coverage from UVB rays. Those are the burning rays. And unfortunately, some good ingredients, some other active ingredients, not very good in the UVA range. So you have to turn around the tube. And that's where then you have to look at what's listed under active ingredients. And there are some inactive ingredients that may be important as well, such as antioxidants, DNA repair enzymes, and some colorant, which may help as well. So look at the back of the tube. For example, this is two sunscreens. The front looks very identical. This is sold in CVS. And for not an expert eye, you won't see the difference on the front. But if you turn around, you will see the left side has titanium dioxide and zinc oxide, and those are the physical filters, okay? And the other one has all these difficult names to pronounce. Usually, if there's only 1 or 2 ingredient as an active ingredient, that is always gonna be a physical ingredient, physical filter. If there is more than 2 ingredients, it's always gonna be chemical filters, or there will be chemical filters in there. Why is that? It's because, well, hold on just a second. So basically what you have to understand, that physical sunscreens sit on the top of the skin and they basically reflect the light. So as long as they're on the skin, they will work. They don't really degrade. They do absorb a bit, but they basically reflect. As opposed to chemical sunscreen, go inside a bit deeper in your skin and they absorb the light. They turn the light energy to heat, and they can very easily degrade and destabilize and heat. So why do you have to use many ingredients in one sunscreen? Because mainly the chemical ingredients they don't cover the whole spectrum of UVA and UVB light. So they're puzzles. You have to put them together. So these are all chemical sunscreen. None of them in the United States gives you full coverage. The only ingredient which give you full coverage is zinc oxide, okay? The only ingredient in the United States. Well, in Europe, the Europeans are much luckier because they actually have some better chemical filters that will cover you in the full coverage. So why is the full coverage so important? It's because you have to have not just UVB coverage, which is the traditional coverage, which makes you burn, and that's what the SPF measures. That will give you the skin cancer, but the UVA will give you all the wrinkles, okay? And this is very important. And also UVA, right, can give you skin cancer through an oxidative damage. So if nothing else, you will remember UVA is for aging and B is for burning. And this is a really good proof. This woman was a truck driver all her life. So she has a darker skin, she tans pretty well. And look at that. You have to know that the side windshield on your car only blocks UVB. Glass only blocks UVB, but it lets UVA through. So she gets not much cancer, but all the sort of a wrinkling. So there was a question from Juan about why the fishermen or people who are always out on the sun maybe don't get as much cancer, but get a lot of wrinkling. And it's partially true that people who have darker skin, for example, they don't get as many cancer because they don't burn. Also, if you gradually get a tan and you're always tan, that tan is actually a natural protection for you. It's like an umbrella sitting above your skin cells, so you don't get the cancer as easily. But the UVA doesn't care about that umbrella. It just goes through the deeper layer in your skin and gives you the wrinkling. So that's why people who tan gradually but still can tan and they're always in the sun maybe won't get as many skin cancers, but get still very, very wrinkly. Now fishermen who are white and cannot tan and burn all the time, they will still get both wrinkles and skin cancer. Okay, so what's the most important of this UVA light is this oxidative damage, and basically it makes from this woman this woman. So it really chops up your collagen and makes you really wrinkly. So and not just wrinkles, but you get those brown spots, okay, and also you can get skin cancer. What's important too is that all this UV light, all the water, all the sun can actually damage the barrier of your skin. So it's not just the cancer we are talking about, why you have to protect yourself. But as you know, when you get off the boat, you feel just dry and windburn. And it's because this brick and mortar, which seals your skin and protects your inside, gets leaky. So the water can evaporate and leave your deeper layer, so you get dry and things can get in there and then you can get irritated. So not just the sunscreen, but after you get off the sun, it's very important to repair that barrier because that always get damaged out there on the boat. So you have to use something which we call Dermatologist an antioxidant, because that antioxidant will protect you from the long wave UVA rays, protect that important lipid layer, and protect against wrinkling and pigment formation. So the other big topic is REEF safety with sunscreen. Why is that such a big topic? That 2018, May, Hawaii was the first one who banned some ingredients, and actually a lot of other areas followed. For example, US Virgin Island, Key West, except that was returned or reversed. But there are a lot of other areas that are banning certain ingredients. And I know it's difficult to remember, but please remember these two ingredients, oxybenzone and octene oxide. So you remember, turn the bottle and check for these ingredients. So what's going on? It's a big debate between coral scientists, and Noah really believes that this is true. So we actually talked with Noah about this. And of course, the industry, the sunscreen industry, and we dermatologists kind of in the middle, because we want people to use sunscreen. We don't want to restrict sunscreen use, and we are not coral scientists, so we cannot comment on this. But basically, what happens when the coral gets bleached? What is coral bleaching? So coral is actually not just coral, but coral and algae live together in a symbiotic relationship. So the coral itself has no color. The algae on the coral that gives those beautiful color, the red, the blue, because they're fluorescent. So when the coral gets stressed, okay, then these algae leave the coral. And that's why you get this white, bare coral, because those algae, which gives the coral the color, disappears. Now, this is kind of an equilibrium. Sometimes the algae can go back and then repopulate, and the coral can again get back the color. But if it's too much damage, then that bleach is definite, and that coral will never live again, okay? So this is basically coral bleaching. So the scientists, what they studied is, and of course, you know, people believe that, who are arguing against that these ingredients causing coral bleaching, they say that the temperature increase, other pollution, environmental damage is much more important than these ingredients. But you know, when scientists study these ingredients in a high enough concentration, it is definitely very harmful to these algae. So the algae leave the coral, and then when even in a normal temperature, you know, it can turn basically a male fish to a female fish. It accumulates in the tissue. It has been found now in Chesapeake Bay oysters, and unfortunately, oxybenzone is very much, think about it as a birth control pill, very estrogenic, so like a hormone pill. So the best example, again, the fish, those fish who can turn gender, if they feed these fish with oxybenzone, they all turn into females, and they cannot turn back into male. So the issue is though the concentration, and it's a little bit like global warming in my eyes. It's about, is there enough pollution? Is there enough CO2 emission that will hurt us? And maybe not enough in a certain area, but if you all put it together, it does matter. But I have to tell you that in Hawaii and also in the US Virgin Islands, St. John, they measure the concentration of oxybenzone in certain bays that are very sort of protected, and the concentration in those bays definitely reached the concentration which would kill the coral in an aquarium. So my thing is that I always tell that if we know that these are harmful, even in a laboratory environment, why would we not use ingredients that are not harmful for the marine environment? On top of it, oxybenzone is known to actually convert chlorine to a very dangerous, sort of more oxidative, more harmful ingredient. So I really hate oxybenzone in chlorine pools. So the other thing is that oxybenzone is a very, very small molecule. So dermatologists and pediatricians also always told children not to use it for years and years and years. And the FDA finally made some studies, and I don't want to talk about science, but I just want to tell you that most of the chemical filters they studied or actually all of the chemical filters they studied gets absorbed into the blood above a level where the FDA officially requires more testing, toxicity and endocrine testing. The reason these ingredients are on sunscreens because we've been using them 30, 40 years. So they were kind of grandfathered into the system, so the FDA never really tested them. But if you really want to see, oxybenzone is like really high level, very, very high level. So the FDA actually came out in February 2019, new proposed regulation, and they said that only certain ingredients in sunscreens are GRACE, which is generally recognized as safe and effective, and only zinc and titanium was basically dedicated to be GRACE. And all the other chemical ingredients are actually, they say there's insufficient data, okay? So they want more studies on them. And this is where we are right now. There's a lot of battle between sunscreen manufacturers because they say we've been using these ingredients for a long time and we have never detected any problems. So basically, I just want to tell you that in the United States, we know that there are only 2 ingredients that are really REEF friendly, the zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, and also for children, those are the safe chemical ingredients. So why Harken Derm? Why Harken Derm is different, or why people should use Harken Derm? Well, when I went, on the boats and people start to ask me questions, and I realized first of all, there's somewhat a knowledge gap. I mean, sailors want to use a good sunscreen. And I think the new generation, more and more, the younger sailors really care about their skin. But it's, again, there are 2,000 different sunscreen in this country, and it's very different to decode sunscreen. So I saw that people were not using the right sunscreen. And there are some specifics I wanted to have in this sunscreen. So as I told you, I wanted an SPF 50 in the United States. This is the highest you can get a sunscreen right now. So at least SPF 50. I wanted to make sure it has only these ingredients that are safe for the corals and safe for humans, I think. So these mineral ingredients. I wanted to put antioxidants in my sunscreen because, as I told you, antioxidants kind of the second layer of defense, okay? Those are also important for, even if there's some sun goes through, they will mitigate that. I wanted something extremely water resistant, and I almost made it a little bit too water resistant because our sunscreen is formulated with a technology that almost like these professional makeups are made of with. So once you put it on, and it dries, it will not move. It will not move into your eyes, so it will never burn your eyes, and it will not come off even if you're underwater. So you kind of have to really scrub it off. You have to use a towel to scrub it off. So the only thing, we sometimes complaints we have that, oh, it's like really hard to scrub off. And of course it sticks to the hair. So of course nothing is perfect, but at least it's not greasy, it's not running, it's hydrating. It dries very quickly, and it's not liquidy, because when I made my kind of market research, the sailors told me, don't make anything which is runny because we don't want it to drop on the boat, okay? And try it safe and reef safe. So these were my thing, and I think I really accomplished all these my desires. So where does Jimmy comes in the picture? So Jimmy stayed at our house a couple of years ago for a blue chip. And he's, of course, a red hair, white skin guy. And he said to me, you know what? I know I have to use a sunscreen, but I get so dry and I don't know what's best for me being on the water, on the sun, to use in the evening. And that was kind of an aha moment for me, because I always thought that sunscreen is not enough. You also have to, as I told you, repair the barrier, moisturize, kind of prepare your skin for the next day, prepare your skin for the next day. But I never thought that the guy would be interested. And so that was the creation for my after sun, because you have to know the damage doesn't stop when you get off the boat. There's still things are still cooking. So you can mitigate that damage, okay? And that's why I prepared this after sun, and I was very specific to do this for sailors, because of course you want anti-wrinkle cream and all these things, and the dermatologist's favorite anti-wrinkle cream, which is called retinol, it will make your skin sensitive for the sun, so you should really not use that. But you don't know, I mean, sailors don't know. So I wanted something which is super rich in lipids. So again, seals and basically that's the mortar in between the bricks, the skin cells, so your repairs that barrier, and super rich in antioxidants, because it's the evening when the skin needs to repair, and you basically help the skin to repair the damage and get ready for the next day. So I call it this two-step solution, and it was a little bit of a mistake because we called it daily after sun. So people thought it was some kind of a glorified sort of aloe vera, but it's not. It's not just an aloe vera. It's so much more and so much richer. So I always tell that it's like morning protection, evening repair, and it's a two-step, and it's supposed to be used together. All right, so that would be my kind of going through my presentation, and I will answer all those other questions. Is that okay, Juan?
That's correct. Let's address them.
Okay, hold on. Here you go.
So a couple of things, Joa, but you already touched them. One of the questions we got was about coral decoloration, which you already addressed that, and the different type of sunscreen. The other repeated question was about people living near the equator line, different than going farther latitudes. How that change, and what extra care should be taken when you get close to the tropics and those areas?
Yes, so it's a super good question. So it's plain physics. So we have the sun, and then we have the earth, and in between we have the atmosphere. Okay, and then when the sun, there's three UV rays that are emitted by the sun: the UVC, the UVB, and the UVA. Now UVC is basically absorbed by the ozone layer, okay? But when the ozone layer gets thinner, like around in Australia, unfortunately, it was years ago, although it get repaired, that was one reason of their higher skin cancer rate, because that is a very, very carcinogenic skin cancer causing ray. But when the shorter that filter is, the higher the so-called UV index. And UV index it's a measurement of the strength of the sun, okay? It's basically the joule per square centimeter, how strong the sun is. When you are in a higher latitude, you're kind of crossing, and that the sun is in an angle, you know, so you have a higher atmosphere to go through, so the UV index becomes lower somewhat. So plainly that's the reason that in those lower altitude the sun can get stronger as opposed to in the higher altitude. But of course it depends on the season too. But it's basically a higher UV index means a stronger, more intense sun exposure, and of course that will give you more skin cancer or aging risk.
And something that we sailors tend to do is wear the sunscreen before leaving the dock. You know, like when we're preparing the boat, it's 9, 10 a.m. That's when we put the sunscreen on. And most likely we will be back at the dock at 5 without wearing it again. So how often through the day you would recommend reapplying?
Yeah, so it's a super good question. The way the FDA recommends is to reapply it every 2 hours, okay? But that is a recommendation which is really old, and there are some sunscreens, for example, Harken Derm, that if you apply it in the right amount, then basically it will stay all day long, and you don't really have to reapply it unless you're spending a lot of time on the water or you're rubbing your face. So it totally depends on the sunscreen. Also, basically there is this recommendation by the FDA that you have to apply 15 minutes before sun exposure. And it's mainly true for chemical filter containing sunscreens because it has to kind of absorb in the sun, you know, and they want this to really absorb. But the physical sunscreens like Harken Derm, as long as you put it on your skin and it's there and it dries, dried, which is like 30 seconds, it's working, okay? But it totally depends. Also very much depends whether a sunscreen is water resistant or not, because non-water resistant sunscreens are not created to withhold sweating or water. So I would never use a non-water resistant sunscreen as a sailor to start with.
So besides sunscreen, which is an important part of the mix, what else we should be doing to protect our skin through these long days under the sun? And what will be your advice for us to double check ourselves on a regular basis for the areas that are exposed?
Yeah, so although of course I'm promoting my sunscreen, but no sunscreen will ever compete with some kind of clothing, okay? So as much surface you can protect, you wear sun protective clothing. And the way it's easy to look at whether it's good sun protection, you stretch it out against the sun, the less comes through, the better the clothing is. Yeah, there are these UPF clothing, but it's basically just a tightly woven clothing. So unfortunately, you cannot put really a bucket on your head, you know, you have to, your face is exposed. So, but these gaiters are really good because the neck is very high risk. I find a ton of skin cancers on the neck of sailors, okay, the ears. So the problem is if you're a racer, it's not very fancy to wear a wide brim hat, but if you're just the weekend sailor or casually sailing, I would recommend a wide brim hat because it will cover your ears much better. The ears are very high risk. And what you have to look for is basically, there are two main categories, you know, the melanoma and the rest of it. So the melanoma, what you have to look for it is like some kind of a new mole, an ugly duckling, something that's changing, or melanomas should be sleeping. They should be totally asymptomatic. So if any of your moles become itchy, red, or bleeding, that for sure, you know, so that's what you should look at. And for the other type of skin cancer, which is the basal cell and squamous, you have to look at something which is rough and red and pink, or an area which is shiny, and then it actually you rub and it bleeds. So those things. The funny thing I tell people that Harken Derm, because it has zinc on it and it sticks so well on the skin, tends to accumulate a bit into the precancerous areas on the skin. So guys, when they put Harken Derm on, some areas look like it just sticks there, and it's more white and thicker. And I tell that may be a sign that that's a precancer, because those areas are just having a little bit of diseased skin, and the zinc containing sunscreens likes to kind of bunch up there. So
okay, that's always good to know. Something bad to look at, but good to know.
yeah, I know.
So we have more on an informal.
But you know that, Juan, the thing is that the issue, of course, with Harken Derm, that it's white. So like, for example, you have people like, because I think that was as a question whether Peter wears a sunscreen or not. He has this very, you know, olive skin. You have the olive skin. So you guys, of course, you have much less risk for skin cancer because you have already some of your own sunscreen inside of your skin, the melanin, the color, and then you tan very easily. But you're still at risk for aging, and you know, you can still burn. Like Peter has burned many times on the top of his head when we are snorkeling. So I force him to put on sunscreen on his top of his head. There he is in the background. So the issue is, yeah, with these zinc sunscreens, of course, on a darker skin, Mediterranean skin, Italians, and you know, they have a hard time wearing it. So what sometimes people do is just wear basically tinted sunscreen, so put tint in it. But you know, no one sunscreen is good for everybody.
Yeah, no, and I grew up not wearing it, so I'm guilty of that. On a time that nobody was wearing it, no? So
Yeah.
things have changed, and I'm probably one of the lucky ones that does not know what means sunburn. I just turn darker. Like I never turn red or anything like that, but that doesn't make it right. It's just,
Well, but that's why we have so much less risk, because if you don't burn, you know, you have very little risk for skin cancer.
so the last one, completely unrelated, is where is your favorite place to go sailing?
Oh, oof. I don't know. But it depends, you know, whether you go you know, we just came back from Croatia. It was really nice, but it was nice because it was COVID time, so it wasn't busy. What I heard from my dad, who is captaining boats down there, that it's been extremely busy in the last 10 years, so it's annoying. You know, I loved our trip in Thailand because it's such different culture and beautiful water. I always like Porto Cervo. Porto Cervo is always great. So it just depends. I don't think I have well, and of course our own lake in Lake Balaton, which is just where I grew up in the summer. So.
Okay, well, it's always good to talk with you and with my friend Peter. That is
Here's
something.
Peter.
Hi, Peter. It's always good to see you as usual. And I see that you're enjoying your nice afternoon there, so probably get you some sunset.
We're ready for a glass of wine. It's past 5 o'clock.
There you go. Yeah, I just learned what a sundowner means. So I know I'm on the southern hemisphere these days, so it's still winter here.
I know.
I appreciate your time and your knowledge.
Of course, Juan. Thank you.
And everything that you guys do to keep sailing safer and better and more enjoyable.
And then last comment, please wear your mask. It will help with COVID and also with your sunburn.
Okay, definitely, we can do that. Thanks, Eddie. Nice talking with you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye.